Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth, and welcome to episode 39 of the 4x4 Earth podcast. New Utes coming out with Robert Pepper.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing, and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. I hope you got a lot out of our previous two episodes, which were with Bruce Garland and rally driving, and he certainly got me fired up to, I want to find some of those big dunes. It just sounds completely epic. Today, we've got a wide-ranging interview with Australia's number one four-wheel drive journalist, Robert Pepper. And we're going to start the conversation off by talking about some of the new vehicles that are coming out. And I think that this is really quite exciting. We've got information about the new Ford Raptor, which Robert's had a look at. There's the new Colorado, and we may have the new Wrangler Ute coming out as well soon too. So lots of exciting things to talk about. Let's get right into it now. Hey Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Always a pleasure to be on this show.
Now, first off, the new Ford Raptor, it's been out for a few weeks now. Have you driven one?
Yes, I have. I went to the press launch, so lucky to be first journalist in the world to have a drive of it. So, yeah, have had a drive and have a view on it.
So I've made my views fairly clear because I was quite excited about it. How does it actually drive?
We've got to tackle that from at least three different surfaces. So you've got on-road, high-speed off-road / dirt, and low-speed off-road. And it drives really well on all the surfaces. It's I think it's the best handling ute on the market on any of those surfaces and the most capable. And it's largely to do with the suspension. It's really quite amazing what Ford have done there. It's got longer travel suspension than standard long track and that range by about 20%. Amazing job with the shocks there. It's got pretty tall tyres, nearly 33 inch and 285 17 there. Soaks up the bumps like you wouldn't believe, like a comp truck. It's really incredible just what that vehicle can do at high speed over rough ground, and even on the road it's great as well. Low range, it's got pretty good clearance. It doesn't have 283mm clearance as Ford would have you believe. I don't know where they got that figure from, but I measured underneath the diff. I've got a video on my Facebook page of me doing that, and it's been like about 240. So it's probably the best low range ute in the market, pretty much. Definitely the best on road and at high speed off road. But unfortunately, that capability leaves it a bit compromised elsewhere.
Would the engine be a part of that?
Yes and no. The engine, if it wasn't a sports vehicle, the engine would be adequate. If it was just a normal Ranger, and I think that 2-litre turbo in some ways in many ways will do a better job than the 3.2. It's slightly more powerful, more efficient, 10-speed automatic, etc., etc. But here's the thing: when you have a sporting vehicle, you don't want an engine which is just adequate. You want an engine that goes, yeah. You want to enjoy pressing that accelerator pedal, and you don't in the Raptor as it stands. And there's two ways to look at this. The first is the sheer amount of power it can produce. And you can get a thrill from a car which is just very powerful but not very responsive. And a good example of that is Ford's own Mustang. You sit in one of those, you put, even in the 530, you put your foot to the floor. There's no instantaneous zing, right? It just builds up on you. And that's good, and it's fun. Reverse of that is when a car isn't very powerful, but it's very responsive. And my two favourite examples there are the Mazda MX-5 and the Toyota 86. As soon as you touch the accelerator on those things, you feel it, and there's instant responsiveness. The nose rises in step. And there's not a huge amount of power once you've got past that instantaneous responsiveness, but that's the fun. But the Raptor's power plant doesn't give you either of those response or of those enjoyment. There's not a large amount of power there, and it's not particularly responsive as you'd expect from a 2.5-ton vehicle, 2.3-ton vehicle.
It's a little bit disappointing. Where does it sort of fit price range?
Well, it's $75,000 plus on road, so it's probably about 82, 83 by the time you get it on the road, and that is a lot for a ute. But got to put it in perspective. You're getting a lot of stuff which you'd buy aftermarket. So you're getting recovery points. You don't need to bolt those on. You're getting a tow bar, which straight there, straight away, and you're getting tow electrics, although not an electric brake controller, you're getting decent tyres, you're getting decent wheels, you're getting very decent suspension. And even the side steps are actually not your usual rubbish piece of alloy throw away to junk. They're actually tucked up out of the way, and Ford engineers tell me that they actually do take a decent load and protect the vehicle. And you're getting everything the Wildtrak's got, more or less. So you can't look at the 75k price tag and say it's the same as, X many more than a Wildtrak, because you're getting quite a bit of stuff you'd normally tack onto a Wildtrak anyway.
Yeah. So would you think about buying one?
I have thought about buying one, and in fact, I had a deposit on one a little bit, but no longer. The reason I'm going to take the deposit off is a combination of three things: price, performance, and payload. Look, I could probably see my way clear to 75 grand just if it had a power plant that I'd get in and go, yeah, I just love this. But for a sporting vehicle, it's just not there. And the payload is something we really got to talk about as well. I can see what Ford have done, and they have done a very, very good job at what they set out to do, which is to transport two people in a drinks bottle at high speed over extremely rough terrain. They've done an amazing job on that, and I take my hat off to them. And everyone in four-wheel driving should be grateful and impressed with what Ford has done. Unfortunately, my needs are not to transport two people in a drink bottle at high speed over rough terrain. I need to take a touring load. So my ideal Raptor would actually be to have one which had a payload of, say, 900 kilograms, at least 850 in a proper payload. And I would sacrifice some of its unladen high-speed capability for that extra payload. As it is, the Raptor has a payload of 758 kilograms, and you're going, oh, well, that's not too bad, 758, yeah, it's more than a GU Patrol for sure, etc., etc. But here's the thing, it's not a real 758 kilogram payload. The reason is that the payload is actually the sum of the front and the rear axles. That means in order to get your full 758 kilogram payload, you've got to exactly load the front and the rear axles up to manual then their maximum load. Now, normally with most Utes and indeed the Ranger, the sum of the two axle loads is more than the gross vehicle mass, which means you've got some weight distribution potential front and rear and it should be exceeding it by about 150. So now if we take 150 kilograms off 758, we end up with a payload of 600 kilograms, which is really not enough. So that's an issue there, but it gets worse than that, because that suspension is designed to work in an unladen mode, and you're certainly not very much laden. So as soon as you start putting a load in it, even let's say 400 or 500 kilograms, you're going to start to push it out of its ride zone towards its bump zone, and you're not going to get the best out of the vehicle. So for me, I love the car. I would have liked to spend all day just driving it at high speed, but in reality, when am I going to be in a situation to drive a near unloaded Ute at high speed over rough terrain? And where are we going to find this terrain to drive over? You don't want to go fanging at insane speeds around your local state forest or into the outback. And if you go into the outback, you're going to take your camping gear. So can you see what I mean? But I'm struggling to kind of fit it into my life, much as I love it.
And I did think that was one of the big issues with it. Like, yes, it sounds completely epic. I would get that. I probably would have got it if it had the engine. As it is, I don't know where I would drive it. Like, I think you need to be careful when you're four-wheel driving. You can't going around corners, all of those sort of things. Yeah, it sort of begs the question, what would you do with it? And, I'm probably not going to enter a rally or anything like that. As epic as that would be, yeah, it's an interesting sort of use case for it, isn't it?
Well, it is. And you could say, well, look, the thing is, it would work better as a tourer if you had the payload there. And, you could be cruising along and everyone else could be being bounced around by ruts and you could just be floating over it like a magic blanket. But if you're going to do that, you're not going to do that unloaded, are you? You're going to put a load in it there. And even motorsports, I mean, look, if you've got a track car like a Lotus Elise, you can take that to a track, you can take it to Phillip Island or Sydney Motorsport Park or wherever, and you can fang around all day in it. But you can't take a Raptor and do that. And you can't take a Raptor to any amateur motorsport events that I can really think of there. If you want to go to your local carnicross and have fun on the 2-kilometre dirt track, you'd buy a $500 Commodore and you'd fang that around. You wouldn't take a $75,000 Raptor and fang that around because the track's smooth, and who wants to risk a car like that doing that stuff. And then, doesn't really have the power to sort of maintain a drift like that. So love the idea of it. But, and again, if I'm going to trailer the vehicle out into the outback to stand around on a private property, why wouldn't you just put an LS3 in a GQ Patrol and drive that, or take a Polaris side by side or whatever and play with that? So love the idea of it. I'm just going, where does it fit into the real world for me?
So what about the Jeep Wrangler Ute? Is there any more news on that?
Nothing official. It's been spy testing in the Rubicon. Lots of photographs come out of it. Looking at it, it looks like it's going to be a pretty interesting vehicle. One thing I like is that the rear axle is quite a long way back into the tub relative to other Utes. It's really got a long wheelbase there. And in contrast to, say, the Triton, which has got the wheelbase tucked up right underneath the door. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what Jeep do. Jeep have historically not gone for the heavy-duty vehicle. I mean, I always say, if you're going to go touring, don't pick a Jeep Wrangler. They're relatively noisy. They're not particularly comforting to drive a long distance. They can't tow much. There's no space inside. There's no payload. It's a really bad touring vehicle. And, of course, all the Jeep owners are going to write in now and say, yeah, we've driven around Australia and we love our Jeeps. Well, good for you. It still doesn't make it the vehicle of choice, right? But looking at the Ute, is it going to be a play Ute where it's just got the tub there, or are they going to go, you know what, we're going to make this a serious heavy-duty Ute in the way the Defender 130 used to be? I don't know which way they're going to go. Very interesting to see. I can't call it. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe it's going to be more of a play Ute and sort of a serious commercial heavy-duty tool, but let's see.
It's going to be an epic play Ute, though.
Yeah, well, look, the tub looks pretty big. Looks like it's got 4 decent doors in it, so... Yeah, are you interested in buying one? I
would say it's probably... I'm undecided what I'm going to get next, and that would probably be... I would have to have a look at it. Obviously, the big issue that I had, with my Wrangler was the fact that it was very, very hard to fit a family in there. The Ute is probably going to make that a lot more doable once it's fixed up a bit. Get some kit on it to be able to put all of the gear in there. So yeah, I'm quite keen on it. I'm keen to see how it goes. But if it's got near Wrangler capability, especially if there's a Ruby version of it, I think that would be awesome. And it's gonna look good as well, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if it was going to look that good, but anyway, functionality over beauty. I don't think it will be as capable as the wagons, because looking at the wheelbase on it, that's a long wheelbase, so you've got a long ramp over angle there and limited manoeuvrability, and then it's all going to add weight as well. So it's going to be a step down in capability. But hey, look, by the time you've done all the standard Jeep things to it, it's going to be pretty bloody amazing off-road, so I wouldn't worry about it not being capable. It's just not as good as a wagon, I'd say.
Next Ute to chat about would be the Colorado ZR1. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, a particular thing on that is it's clear that all of the car manufacturers are looking at the Ute segment and going, well, we got to make money out of this somehow, because they're selling a lot of Utes, right? And we're going, okay, we need to sell more Utes, we need to differentiate, and that's where I think the Raptor came from. Okay, there's something different here. Let's push the Raptor out into the market. And good on Ford for doing that, because the thing about the Raptor is it's actually different to the Ranger. Right, you've got your different suspension, different tyres, different electronics. It's actually been re-engineered. But the latest offerings from Toyota and Holden haven't done that. They've just taken a standard vehicle, a Hilux and a Colorado ZR1, and they've tacked on a bunch of accessories. So Toyota's got 3 models out there, the Rugged X, and the one I forget, and then we've got the Colorado ZR1 Extreme. And in each case, they've gone, all right, we'll just put some accessories on there, a winch, light bar, tyres, maybe revive the suspension a tiny little bit here and there. Chuck a recovery kit in the back, that sort of thing there. And we'll call it a new model, and we'll charge more money for it. And I'm looking at these and going, yeah, not entirely convinced about the point here for private buyers. Now, from a commercial point of view, if you're a fleet buyer, you'd go, beautiful, this is great, because I buy this and it's 100% compliant with all the laws because the manufacturer takes care of that for me. It's all under warranty. I just tick the box and I get my accessories delivered. What's not to like? And then you can do this bulk deal. From a private buyer's perspective, yeah, not so much, because you're looking at it going, well, I could do all of this stuff aftermarket my way. So in the case of the Colorado, they've left 18-inch tyres on it. Now, why would you do that? Why not get yourself a set of 17-inch tyres and put 17-inch tyres on it, 17-inch wheels on it. I'm riding 18s, which, better off-road and cheaper and all the rest of it. And what if you wanted a bull bar, not the nudge bar I've got on there? We've got to take it off and put it on. And what if you wanted a more powerful, less powerful winch? Or it's all pre-prepared. So from a private buyer's perspective, not a massive fan of these things. Can't really see the point. From a fleet buyer's perspective, yeah, kind of makes a point there. What do you think? Would you want to buy one of these cars as it is, or roll your own accessories?
Yeah, like I have. This is the thing that I loved about the Raptor, was that you've actually got a manufacturer who's going out there and actually doing something that is catering to a part of the market. I just think they might be a little bit off in the part of the market. Like, I'm not sure about when you would use it, but it's really exciting that there's someone doing that, because of the fact that I just think that, there's those guys, there's Jeep, everything else is just super bland, and throwing a few bits and pieces on it, I don't really think that really cuts it. Yeah,
exactly. And the problem is it's so personal. Like, you might want this accessory but not that accessory, and you want a safari snorkel because then you can put a reversible head on it, or you may not like the look of this bull bar and you want that one, or whatever, right? And it's all just pre-packaged there. So, look, I think it's not a bad thing, but I wouldn't necessarily advise people to go and buy one of those rather than go the aftermarket with it.
What are we seeing when it comes to putting bodies on Utes?
A lot of extremely bad practice, which is why we see a lot of cracked chassis. So what we're talking here about service bodies where you pull the tub off and you fit your own body on the back. Now, here's something which not many people seem to know, and that is that all the Ute manufacturers, for their cab chassis Utes, produce a bodybuilder's guide, which states the dimensions for the body you can build, the maximum width, the height, the length, and also where you mount the body to the chassis, and also the loading, what load has to go where after you've finished it, the percentage load of the front axle, the rear axle, etc., right? And I see every day Utes which clearly have not adhered to those bodybuilder guides, because the overhang is just insane. Again, singling out the Triton here because its rear axle is so far forwards there, but it's not just that. It's going to be, okay, well, look, we could make this, say, a 1.8 metre canopy or service body and back, but you know what? We're going to make it 2 metres. So then you've got an extra 200 mil out the back there, and you go, oh, okay, well, that's not enough. I think we'll just take 2 spare wheels and hang them on the back. And those wheels are not light because they're probably 33-inch wheels at minimum there, and probably weighs 40, 50 kilos. You've got 80 kilograms, which is coming up for 10% of the total payload. I don't know what's 1.8 metres behind the centre of the rear axle, maybe a bit more. And then on top of that, you then extend your tow bar out. So instead of the standard tow bar, you get an extended tow bar, 100 mil or something like that. Then you put 250, 280 kilograms of tow ball mass on it. You load the whole thing up so that the whole vehicle is probably 200 kilograms, maybe more, beyond its GVM. And you go for a drive over colligations, and then the chassis strap snaps, and you go, oh, weak Ute. Huh, what a surprise. It's just crazy. Look, here's the thing, like, Utes are not unbreakable, and there are specific limits in there. And if you have a service body, or you're going to get one built, ask or demand that the people building it sign a statement of compliance to the bodybuilder's guide, and then explain to you how that should be loaded so it is in compliance with the manufacturer's design limits for weight and weight loading. And I think if that was done, we would see a lot less snap chassis than we do.
It is interesting because some of the brands are getting a little bit notorious for snap chassis, aren't they?
Yes, but I've yet to see one which isn't the result of overloading and or misloading.
That's interesting. Now, tyre pressure management systems. What's happened? What's new in that front?
Well, that came up to my mind the other day because I was driving on the Hume Highway and just noticed this territory was cruising along 110, happy as you like, with a completely flat tyre. So pulled alongside him and signalled him to pull over, which annoyed the traffic behind me, but anyway. And he did pull over and walked up and goes, what's up? And I said, mate, take a look at the tyre. He goes, oh, wow, it's flat. And I said, yeah, it's flat. Might want to change it. And he seemed to have the kits on. drove off and left them to it. But I posted it on my Facebook page, and some people were particularly going, "Oh, yeah, idiots, why can't they recognise flat tyre, blah, 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 blah." But, some really experienced guys came on and said, "Look, we haven't noticed when we've got a flat tyre, things like people who drive Discovery 4s. And if you think about it now, tyres are lower profile than they ever have been, and the noise insulation in vehicles is better than it's ever been before. So it's actually harder and harder to recognise when you've got a flat tyre, particularly because flat tyres are becoming less and less common. So, and it doesn't take very long, particularly with today's heavy vehicles, for you to have a flat, the tyre to completely deflate, and you to drive on it, and then the act of driving on it will actually ruin the tyre. It will tend to separate the tread from the carcass, whereas the original injury, the original puncture might just have been a tack or something like that, repairable. But obviously once you've got complete tread separation from carcass, it's unrepairable. So I'm thinking, maybe not a bad idea to introduce tyre pressure monitoring systems. So I posted that on Facebook, and people go, yeah, well, it's a good idea. But the Americans came in. Now, in America, it's interesting because that's actually had tyre pressure monitoring for quite a while, standard in cars, and that's why things like Jeeps tend to have it standard over here as well. We don't, and I think we should. They're going, people just don't, just ignore it, just another light for them just to drive on, like a check engine light. And I see their point, but for people that do care, it would be a good thing to have. So I'm in favour of introducing tyre pressure monitoring. I think it's a good thing, and I think that the aftermarket units out there are pretty good, and I've tested a few, and they're worth having.
So they're standard in the United States, are they?
Yeah, it's part of their laws. So mandated you got to have tyre pressure monitoring, but not over here, and that's why you see American cars tend to have it standard. So things like the American trucks, which I've tested for F-250, quite a lot of Jeeps have it, for example.
Yeah, well, my Jeep had it. Look, I would be flat tyre thing. That's probably not something that you really want to ignore, I would have thought. Well,
you don't, but he didn't know he had a flat tyre.
Oh, yeah, no, when you were saying that some people just think it's like the check engine light and you just ignore it, it's like,
Yeah, but James, you and I are car enthusiasts, right? And some people, the car is not it's just whatever, they're just interesting flashing lights on the dashboard. Let's just keep driving it until, as long as the engine has not actually physically dislocated from the engine mounts and has burst out of the bonnet into orbit, then they'll just keep driving. So what can you do?
Now, are there problems with the D40s and the automatics on them?
Not really a problem per se, more of a annoying design issue. So the thing is, automatics, you can leave them in drive most of the time, but for what we do, four-wheel driving and towing, quite often you need to select a gear, coming down a hill. You really, some of the really big hills in the high country, you've got a heavy loading vehicle. You need that engine braking for safety and also just to save your brakes, right? And also when you're towing, coming down from Bright or going up, coming down towards Bright, for example, you need to engine brake through there. So it's nice to have an automatic which actually responds to your command and say, I'd like to be in third gear now, please. Please stay in third gear. Or you're going up a hill and particularly in sand, you want to just lock it into a low gear and not change up or change down. So that's important for off-roading and towing. Some vehicles, and I'm singling out the D40 550 here as an example, reader wrote in about this one. I found on test it doesn't want to stay in the gear. So you put it into first gear low range, you're coming down a hill and the car goes, you know what, I'd rather be in second low, so it changes up to second low. You can't do a second gear start, so you're on a slippery incline, and you want to put away in second low, not first low, just to minimise the torque to the wheels. Car goes, I'm not going to have you let you have second low. I'm going to go off in first, and that's really annoying. And it's just a problem with the Nissans. Have been other vehicles, none particularly spring to mind, but it is one of the things that I do test when I'm off road. Will an automatic gear properly actually stay in the gear you select it? And call out here to Land Rover and Ford because they tend to do this very well. Both of them allow you second gear start. In my Discovery 3, I could actually pull away in third gear high range. That's how much control you had over the gearbox. And also it would actually keep in a gear to the point it would stall out. So that's the sort of manual control I like, and that's what I'd like to see from the other manufacturers.
So there you have it, some really interesting news on some of the new four-wheel drives coming out and a couple of other topics that we covered. I want to end this track with a bit of a dedication, and that is to Peter Brett. aka Mr. Rum. Tragically, last week we found out that he had been out four-wheel driving in the snow in the Victorian high country, and he died in a four-wheel drive accident. They'd been driving in the snow, they'd been winching a lot during that day, they'd made the decision to turn around, they were driving back down a track which they'd been up just an hour before, and Pete went round a corner, there was a tree across the road, and the tree was angled towards the edge of the road. His car hit the tree at quite slow speed, but in icy conditions. He was only doing about 15-20 kilometres an hour, and his car slid over the edge of the embankment and he was killed. His brother Steve was in the convoy at the time. So a truly tragic event. Would have been horrific for those involved, especially his brother, and also for Jen, his wife. I'd met Pete on numerous occasions at various 4x4 Earth gatherings. He was from New South Wales. I never saw him in New South Wales. It didn't take much encouragement to get him to go out and to drive great distances, to go four-wheel driving. He's the kind of guy who just loved doing that, loved getting out, loved exploring our great country. He's definitely the kind of guy that you wanted to be sitting next to when you were sitting around the fire. Great bloke, great stories. From my point of view, one of his great talents was his storytelling. Not only did he go out and explore a lot of the country, he was great at documenting it. He was an amazing photographer, took some great photos of the outback and him and Jen exploring it together. Not only that, he was great at telling the stories about those trips. And it's amazing, we've got a thread which I'll include in the show notes from all of the people talking about how they knew him. And there were so many people who knew Pete but never actually met him. And they knew him through the stories that he was telling. And the thing that is really important about that is the number of people that he encouraged to get out and to go and explore some of this glorious country. So Pete, buddy, we're going to miss you. The campfire isn't going to quite be the same as it was. And to Jen and Steve and the rest of his family and friends, our thoughts and condolences are with you. This is a real tragedy. And he's going to be missed by everyone who knew him, everyone who met him, everyone who read one of his posts. So yeah, we'll miss you, buddy.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.